Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm so excited and delighted to catch up with my friend. It's been a little while. We have been playing phone tag for almost a year. But one thing I can say is that he always texts me back. He always gives me a call, Brian McKnight Jr. The reason he doesn't need any introductions is because his voice and his sound is so effortless and just seems to almost have a natural beginning, which we can all imagine. But I thank you so much for joining me in person, my friend.
No, of course, man. I'm really, really happy to be here. This is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm loving seeing all these beautiful black faces in here putting on this production, man. So,
absolutely. Well, we're delighted to have you, man, for
Yeah.
sure. So I want to go back to that night I come to your performance, and you've put together the whole band, all the sets, all the people that are performing, and you just seem to take in the feeling and the mood of the crowd. And as you're singing, sometimes facing them, sometimes to the side, sometimes to the band, you're just enjoying Marvin Gaye,
oh yeah.
who I'm sure you seem to just love.
Oh,
Talk
man.
to us about sort of how you embody music.
Man, the way, the things that make it easy for me to transcend, the mundane side of being behind the mic sometimes is I'm really, really fortunate enough to know and play with some of the best musicians, man, in not only LA, but New York. I have fell into a really incredible group of cats that I feel like are that new age version of what Steely Dan and them were doing back in the day. No egos involved.
Right.
We all just do our thing. So whenever it's my turn, I can really just sing. I don't have to worry about the music not being right or up to par.
Right.
Because I love doing karaoke as well, man, but there's really nothing about having an incredibly good band behind you that, are also your friends. Like, we have become brothers during these residencies since the pandemic, man, which have helped me because I wasn't doing much performing.
Right.
And you honestly caught me in that moment where I had just gotten comfortable with it again.
Right.
So, and then singing Marvin, man, because, if they ever do a Marvin movie,
Exactly.
please hit me up. I can grow the beard, I rock the beanie. Because I feel like even for me personally as a songwriter, man, himself is one of, I think, our last pioneers in writing. I can write the sexy songs, I can write the get you a woman songs, but I'm at that point now, being a father for one, and then finally realizing what I think my place is as a young black man here in America and what I should be talking about. All helps me, again, embody whatever I need to be on that stage because I feel like I have finally found myself. So between having an incredible team and then just that reassurance of myself again, man, as a performer, has been incredibly therapeutic and healing for me this last year and a half. So,
Sure.
I'm glad you got to catch that, actually.
Sure. No, definitely. So obviously we have to roll back the clock a little bit. You're growing up in a home, everybody knows your dad's name, and there's music everywhere, and you're seeing the greats come and go. Let's talk about, though, you starting to actually sort of wet your own chops and then ultimately start performing on the side, with your dad.
It's wild, man, because a lot of people don't know how long I've been making music. I remember being 6 or 7 and I'd be at back room with my dad and I would force his engineer to build me my own little makeshift studio in the lobby of back room. And while my dad was producing, I'd be out there producing. And then, from having a studio in my bedroom personally, because once my dad saw, he was like, okay, this is the one thing I will always thank my father for was that he put the tools in front of me early, and not just any tools. I had a full-on analog studio at 9 to 11. Wow. And I worked at it, man, and I was fortunate enough to get to watch my dad, get to watch my mom write, get to watch my 2 uncles write, who are also 2 of my favorite singer-songwriters as well. But then any given day, man, I'd come down and El DeBarge would be at my dad's piano, or a Michael McDonald, or a Bobby Caldwell, or a Michael Cimbello. All my biggest influences now, I actually got to see. My godfather, Brandon Barnes, who wrote all those early hits with my dad, I got to be right on their laps, literally, as I feel like they were writing some of our last generation's greatest songs of all time, you know, Babyface and Stevie, man. And I guess something in me had the awareness early to not take those things for granted, because I was that annoying kid. I was asking questions. I was over my dad's shoulder while he was playing keys, which is how I learned how to play. And then watching my mom, who would write through any situation, you know, as an author, but also as a songwriter, man, you know, all of those things have blended together into who I am as a complete artist. And then also having a younger brother who was afflicted by the same virtuoso nature that we have, and who was even more of a savant than myself. I mean, my brother can pick up any instrument, sing any melody, any tone, top to bottom, and it's just stellar, effortlessly, and doesn't faze him at all, you know, and that's what I'm trying to learn, because sometimes I get in my head just because I want to be, you know, I want to be able to be a good example of the people that I've learned from. And that's something, again, that this new level of performing I'm doing now has kind of got me to shed that and become who I am really as a performer. So, you know, it's wild how those things begin to blend together when you're a child, you know. And I didn't really get the depth of it until I had kids. So it's really interesting to see which characteristics they pick up on, you know. And luckily, I think they all have the music bug in them. And we'll see what happens, you know.
So a lot of people, I think, can easily throw shade or hate. Oh, man, he got to have that, man. I didn't get to get a studio till I was 30, 40. You know, they ripped me off. They wouldn't let me be in the studio. They took all my stuff. I want to talk about how you also paid your dues. You went on the road. You and your brother performed all the time. And just sort of that feeling, because I think sometimes I sense that they may feel like I was paying my dues, but also someone was betrayed because I'm not really paid at the rate the background singers would have had, even that.
No, me and my brother and I, man, talk about it all the time. It's like, were we incredibly fortunate? Without a doubt. But the other thing I really appreciate my dad for was that he did take us out there. When I came to him at 16, I was like, Dad, I don't want to hoop. I don't get the same feeling as I get from the times that you brought me out on stage, man. So it's kind of a double-edged sword that you showed me this. And then that was the moment. I remember being 17, and he was like, we're gonna go on tour. I had homeschooled. My brother and I had both graduated. You figure I was 16, my brother was 13, you know, but we had both done our thing. You know, we were able to work at our own pace, so we were out. It's not like we were missing out on anything. And those first 3 years of tour, man, we learned pretty quick that it was a job. 5 a.m. lobby calls, you know, strict schedule, no partying, none of that. Like, we had fun, but we learned from my father, man, that it really was a grueling, if you want to be that good. You know, I watched my dad do 22 shows in 7 days, one after a 22-hour flight. No voice problems, no issues, because he was dedicated to ensuring that he kept his mind, body, and soul sound, at the very least at that time. And I'm so glad that we got to be a part of it when I would say he was at the peak of that success that he had, especially as a touring artist, to really see what it took to do that, as well as try to balance your personal life. You know what I mean? Because it really is a grueling process, especially when you are that popular and do as much as someone like my dad and myself does. You know, we act, we host things as well, you know what I mean? We are MDs for other people. I'm constantly writing and producing for other people as well, and then constantly working on my own stuff. And then I'm a dad, you know, and also like a future husband. So, you know, it is a lot, but what I appreciated and what I would love to become an example of is that it can be done. You can find that balance, and you can do it the right way, which is what I'm trying my best to instill in my son now, who's 8, you know, trying to be the best example of exactly who I am for him without having to sacrifice too much of my own character, because I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to do for your children either. You know what I mean? They have to see you be you. And if you're working on being the best version of yourself in that process, you can't really fall short and beat yourself up for the things that you may not be able to teach them, you know? So I was very fortunate enough to have some of the best mentors ever, man, just in life when I was 16 to 25, you know? But then even after that, man, when it got to that point where life got rocky, you know, the part of our lives that people really don't understand, for my brother and I, was that, man, we've really been through it all. You know, like I've been evicted twice. You know, I lived out of my Jeep for 6 or 7 months, was couch to couch, you know, and still writing for other people, still showing up for these sessions, still scoring projects. But nah, man, I know wholeheartedly what it feels like to be an independent and struggling artist with a family to take care of.
Right.
And what I have found helps me the most is being extremely filled with gratitude that I've been able to live so much life, man, on both levels, to be able to relate and empathize for the people that I meet that may not have my experiences. So when I meet, you know, the background singers or such, or people that are just getting into the business that have had some so-called failures, you know what I mean? My biggest thing to him, you know, like my brother before me, was like, you just got to keep it pushing and appreciate the opportunity. Some things may fall short in your mind, but there's always something to be learned that can then be shared with whoever's coming behind you. And that's what I kind of go into every situation with. It's like, this may not just be for me. You know, it may not even be for someone close to me, but if through myself and my actions, I can somehow help someone else who's trying to get to the next level as well get there, that's the win for me, man. Yeah.
Do you feel that given all that you were putting in all along into the relationship, not only with your dad, but your mom and things like that, that there was this, and then being on the road and doing all the work in the background and really not, like I said, being paid up to par, there's almost like a sense of betrayal, like some of the anger and the frustration is, we were there, we were all in, we believed in you and put in all the work, and now there's nothing. And like I said, even financially, okay, fine, I don't understand all the personal things, I won't be there, but financially, hey, this betrayal, because I put everything in, almost like an artist that's got dropped after they put in all the work, help write the song, help write the lyrics, we see this all the time, and then the song goes without their name and they don't even get the credit, they don't even get any money.
You know, our story is really interesting, you know what I mean, because I think my father himself really did the best that he could as both a boss at that point and a dad. You know, I mean, really what it comes down to for us was financial literacy, which I think is just another thing. You know, my dad himself never really had it, which then he really couldn't teach us. You know, my brother and I, and my dad included, really, I mean, we were making rent, you know what I mean? Like, and from his standpoint, it wasn't necessarily him taking care of us, you know, but we were definitely making money at that time, man, and it wasn't until stuff got rocky for my dad and the tours fell through that things began to shift, you know what I mean? And again, like I've said often, it was really nothing financial for my brother and I until my dad put that out there, you know what I mean? But for us, it was like, we never asked for money, we never, you know, and I don't want to say my dad wasn't giving, but he wasn't one of those, I'm just going to splurge on you, dad, and stuff like that. Like, we were getting hand-me-downs of a lot of things, and I was like, it wasn't one of those type of situations. And he did try his best, I believe, especially now, to put us in position at the very least to then figure it all out. You know, would I have loved more of a mentor on the financial side? Oh yeah, man. When I think about the money I was spending when I was 18 and 19, because I did have that cushion. You know, I could go to my parents' cribs. You know, I didn't necessarily have to pay rent and stuff like that for a while, until I was 19, you know, but by the time my brother were out on our own, we realized pretty fast the things that we weren't privy to. And it took us a while, man. It took us maybe 4 or 5 years to at least get to the point where we could support ourselves wholly. But we really did do that, man. And I commend my younger brother, especially more than I, because he went into the corporate world, still in an artistic way, because he's become one of the top photographers and videographers in LA now. But he really did it right. And I think he did everything he could to try to show, like, my dad, like, all right, man, well, I did it right. So then when there was still that, you know, hesitation to be that loving dad, even in those moments, I feel like was even more so what became the issue for then me, because I'm watching my brother, you're like, heartbroken to still not be able to establish that type of relationship. Same thing for my sisters, man, which was always my thing. I'm huge on family. Everything in my being, everything that I do, all that I wish for stems from what I would love to be able to afford my family. So they don't have to worry about a thing. And then can go use these beautiful gifts that they have. Like my family, man, there's so much talent in my family, and even in our extended family, naturally, the people, I'm not a name dropper, you know what I mean? But when I am constantly have told stories to this day that my family, of the people we've helped, the Nina Simones, the Martin Luther Kings, you know, to the, you know, again, like the Bobby Caldwells and the Michael Sombreros and the people that have naturally gravitated to my mom's side of the family, just to keep it real.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The people that my grandfather have mentored and helped, man, the Al Greens. And it's just, it's really an interesting array of people we've been fortunate enough to connect to. And I just think we put a lot of stock in the person that made it the furthest.
Right.
You know, that didn't really have the tools then to bring everybody along. That's what another thing that I truly empathize for my dad for. You know, I will always say that with all I know and what I've been through now, he did his best with the tools that he had, you know, and I just tried to now build upon that toolbox and add a couple more things in there so that, you know, my people don't have to go through these things. Like Hope said, man, I went through that so you don't have to go through that. I'm on the same level, you know. I appreciate every single thing, every pitfall, every peak we've hit, because it's made me who I am, man. And my son thinks I'm the coolest guy ever. My daughters love me, and that means the world to me. So.
And I want to transition to that because as a father, you obviously are trying so hard to be that role model and, like you said, juggle it all, be the boss as well as be the dad. How do you keep that in balance, especially given the travel, the rehearsal demands and things like that?
To keep it all the way 100, I can't take credit for it. Their mothers, if I didn't have their mothers, I could not be me. You know, I am fortunate, my oldest children's mom, you know, we were young, we decided to have these kids and do the best that we can as co-parents, and I'm so fortunate enough to have that partner in her that allows me the space to go do the work to take care of us without the resentment, without the you know, the clashing. Not that we haven't, it's been a growing pain, but I think we have cultivated a love and an empathy for our situation together that has allowed us to just consider the children first. You know, she knows that I'm not young me anymore. I'm not out here whiling. I'm not here. She knows that there's any time that I'm not spending with them, it's because daddy's working. And they know that now. And you know, and it's also another thing I'm really fortunate is that I got into this early. So, you know, the success that I've had has set me up to be able to continue to pretty much just follow my dream. So I am in a great position to pick what I do. I can make my schedules based upon what is actually fitting for the goals that I have. I'm no longer chasing the tails of all these opportunities. It's like, no, I'm scoring this project, I'm working on this album. And if by chance there's an acting role or something that comes up, thankfully I have the time to also access to that, but that time goes to my kids. It goes to being a good boyfriend, you know, and the best brother I can be, you know? So it takes a lot of work, but having an incredible support system really makes a big difference, man. And in most of the situations I feel that our struggle for my peers comes from that clashing, you know.
And doing it in the public domain.
And doing it in public. Oh my gosh.
Then everybody's in there and saying,
you know, opinions. Everything is a comment section now. But the other, again, where I'm fortunate, man, is my oldest kid's moms grew up in the life as well. You know what I mean? So she definitely understands all that comes from what I'm trying to achieve. And I think, I mean, with the cards I've been dealt, I have definitely tried my best to go above and beyond what I believe is the cliche assumption of what a young dad like me mindset is, you know, because I still have fun, you know what I mean? I have my friend group. Luckily, though, those are the guys that I work with. So that in itself helps my balance of liking to, you know, I love hitting the bar and having a beer every now and then, you know. Luckily, the work I do now with my residencies and all that appeases that, you know, wolf. I can have that fun while it's not work for me. Being able to have that element as well, you know, again, you know, calms that dog down in me that does like going out and having a good time and partying. You know I can do like the joint you came to, you know, I mean, I can hang out, I can have fun with my homies, but then it's back to work, it's back to family.
Right.
You know, I'm no longer, again, chasing those experiences, you know. And I afford that to my accelerated lifestyle, man. You know, I was overseas in Paris doing those things when my friends were going to prom. Right. And that was always something I don't think they understood. And when I would say stuff like that younger, I can see now how that came off as like, but no, it was like, it's not that I don't care about the experiences y'all are having, but I can't really relate. You know, I didn't feel like I could relate to my peers until I turned 30. And I met my group of friends now that are young artists, independent, didn't necessarily have the luxury that I have getting into this business and just growing up, period, but have made it work, are doing well, are taking care of themselves, and are having fun. They may not have no kids,
sure,
but, you know, I appreciate it. I'm just full of gratitude for where I am, the people I have around me, and the excitement I have for what I feel like is coming. You know.
And our show's called Music and Medicine. When you hear those words, what does that mean to you? How's that ring a bell for you?
Music is medicine. I mean, like my mama would say, music is medicine. And I don't know what I would do. I couldn't have gone through the same things I've gone through in my life if I did not have this outlet. And honestly, if I wasn't so good at it. And that's just keeping it real. If I could not bring my ideas into fruition as quickly and as efficiently as I can, which just comes from 20 years of practice, I don't know where I would be, man. And that's where my father and I would always clash, because basketball didn't quite give me the same thing. It helped my competitive nature, but it didn't give me that calming sense of, okay, I just purged whatever that was. And thank you, God, for letting that come through, whether that was for me or not. So music for me, man, is medicine. And beyond just the personal attachment to it, it literally is medicine. I mean, the science is there.
Yes.
Tuning your music to 432 hertz I mean, these things are proven, and a lot of what I'm trying my best, that's what I'm studying now, you know, is how to better even use the things that I make to heal, you know. So I've gotten into a lot of sound baths, I've gotten into a lot of binaural beat music and trying to begin to produce a bit of that instrumental stuff, because I believe there is so much more of a conversation that should be had about how we can be using tones and frequency to cure a lot of ailments in the body, which I believe in. I've seen these stories of these people, man, that have used, you know, shockwave, sound wave type stuff to cure cancer and to cure brain injuries. You know, the way that I've watched music with my young ones through infancy, it shows that there is some correlation there between the brain and classical music, things that are structured specifically to touch you in a certain way. And, you know, I could get really deep into it about how it works in the negative sense, and with a lot of the stuff that we hear on the radio now, it being in a lower vibration and a lower frequency. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I believe there's a time and place. And in a state where we're constantly being barraged by what would seem isn't the most progressive things to be listening to, you have to wonder who knows that these things work that way.
Absolutely and that they wouldn't be aware.
Exactly.
Where can we find you and all things about you?
You know, I am Brian McKnight Jr. across the board. You know, I figured there was a time where I really went away from that, but then I had a mentor of mine tell me, man, your name, despite what you may think, still holds weight and it still has power. And since then, man, I've ensured to make sure that my name, Brian McKnight Jr., whether it's at Brian McKnight Jr. or brianmcknightjr.com, is where you can find all things in that world. And there is a lot to come, so I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
No, thank you, man, really.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis.